you killed, God raised from the dead. The apostolic witness of Christ in his death and resurrection is the rock on which the church is built. And flowing out of the side of the rock, Christ is water. So if we want to, again, think about all of these different connections and ways in which we see the imagery and anticipation of the Old Testament fulfilled in the person of Christ, I mean, we could probably go on this all day. But regardless, we are seeing that Jesus is leading the woman here to the revelation that he is the Messiah. He is the one who will have that life everlasting. Continuing on, though, let's again see how Jesus brings people who are on the outside, for whatever reason, into a life of faith. So could I get a volunteer to read 16 through 26? Okay, thank you, Richard.
And Jesus said to her, "Go call your husband and come here." The woman answered him, "I have no husband." Jesus said to her, "You are right in saying, 'I have no husband,' for you have had 5 husbands, and the one you now have is not your husband. What you have said is true." The woman said to him, "Sir, I perceive that you are a prophet. Our fathers worshipped on this mountain, but you say that in Jerusalem is the place where people ought to worship." Jesus said to her, "Woman, believe me, the hour is coming when neither on this mountain nor in Jerusalem will you worship the Father. You worship what you do not know. We worship what we know, for salvation is from the Jews. But the hour is coming, and now is here, when the true worshipers will worship the Father in spirit and truth, for the Father is seeking such people to worship him. God is spirit, and those who worship him must worship in spirit and truth." The woman said to him, I know that Messiah is coming, he who is called Christ. When he comes, he will tell us all things." Jesus said to her, "I who speak to you am he."
All right. So, we're actually going to start at the very end here. And we're going to take a look at verse 26. Because verse 26, let me pull up my thing here, is the first occurrence that we see in the Gospel of John of the direct I am reference. And what are we referring to when we talk about I am? Well, let's go back to Exodus chapter 3, please. Exodus chapter 3. And we're going to start in verse 11. But Moses said to God, "Who am I that I should go out to Pharaoh and bring the children of Israel out of Egypt?" He said, "But I will be with you, and this shall be the sign for you that I have sent you. When you have brought the people out of Egypt, you shall serve God on this mountain." Then Moses said to God, "If I come to the people of Israel and say to them, 'The God of your fathers has sent me to you,' and they ask me, 'What is his name?' what shall I say to them?" God said to Moses, "I am who I am." And he said, "Say this to the people of Israel, 'I am has sent me to you.'" God also said to Moses, Say to the people of Israel, the Lord, the God of your fathers, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob has sent me to you. This is my name forever, and thus I am to be remembered throughout all generations. So when we have the name of God here, oftentimes, I'm going to go off on a bit of a tangent, but I don't want to distract myself first. So here is sort of the English. You may have heard me say Yahweh. It's oftentimes known as the Tetragrammaton. So what that means is there are 4 letters in Hebrew. And how Hebrew works is you have all the consonants and then you have vowel pointings. So the name of God does not have the vowel pointings like you would normally expect for the rest of the Hebrew language. But we add in the letters based off of pronunciation, and Hebrew was primarily an oral culture with regard to how information was translated. Certainly they have a writing system, but it was told and retold over and over again. However, when they then were translating the Hebrew Old Testament into Greek to communicate to a Greek-speaking world about the 4th century BC, the way they did that was through an emphatic form. So in Greek, you have 2 different words here that is the verb to be. Ego, that is to be, and eimi, which is also to be. And they usually have a little bit different connotations to that. But when you want to make something emphatic, you say it 2 different ways together.
I see ego.
Like Shakespeare?
What's under am?
Oh, are you talking about that?
Yes, sir.
That's just ignore the purple.
What's right after ego, then there's 3, what does that say?
That's Amy. So that's,
How do you spell it?
well, E-I-M-I. But that's a iota for, that's written in Greek right there. So that's where Greeks can
Don't
look
do that to us.
similar enough. But there's an emphatic way to say I am. And so the only time it occurs in the Gospel of John where you have all together is spoken by Christ. And it's spoken a total of 14 times. So you have these 7 I am declarations that Jesus makes. And the first one of these is in 426. So we have the I am declaration. And then you have another 7 of the I am theological teachings. An example of that we're actually going to hear this morning on Good Shepherd Sunday. I am the door of the sheep. I am the Good Shepherd. Those are these I am theological teachings. And there are 7 of those as well. But the first of the I am declarations, so just a simple statement of who Jesus is with relation to himself and humanity, is in John 4, in verse 26 here. When he says, ego eimi, in John 4:26, and basically how it very woodenly reads, Jesus said to her, I am, comma, the one speaking to you. So it's not, I'm the one speaking to you. It's, I am, statement, that's who is speaking to you. That's how it very woodenly reads in Hebrew. But again, Jesus is very careful and deliberate in making these I am statements. Again, there are 7 I am declarations. That is to say, this is just who Jesus is, just on a being level. He is God. And then there are also I am theological teachings. That is to say, what does he do then as God? Well, he is the door of the sheep. He is the way, the truth, and the life. I am the way, the truth, and the life. I am the good shepherd. All of these are things that only God can be for Israel and for the world. And Jesus is doing those things. There is no other shepherd that can be found in heaven and on earth or under the earth that can perfectly care for a sheep, but Jesus does that. There is no other way, no other path to salvation other than receiving the work of Yahweh, the Lord. So that's where, for us, the I am statements, beginning here in John 4, then as we'll see play out in a variety of different spots following this, are important things to be aware of and commit to memory. Because Jesus is not just saying this as metaphor, but especially in these declarations, he is saying that he is the I am from Exodus 3. He is the God of our fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And this is why his interaction then with the woman at the well, who claims to have importance because this is Jacob's well, and this is our well. And Jesus is saying that's good and fine, but I am the one who has been worshipped, and the one that, as we'll hear in John 8, Abraham saw my day and was glad. Any questions or comments on this, though? So again, John 4:26 is the first of these 14 I am statements, the first of the declarations. The next one that we are going to see is in chapter 6, both in terms of a declaration, but also in terms of a theological teaching regarding who Jesus is and what he has come to do. Any other questions or comments? So Jesus is saying that he is the I am. And this is why when he's, again, working backwards, this is why we know that he is the Messiah. This is why when he says God is spirit and those who worship him must worship in spirit and truth, is the thing that is the reality for all of humanity going forward. Because guess what? Do we say today that we need to go to the temple in Jerusalem to be able to worship and receive the gifts of God? No, wherever 2 or 3 are gathered in my name, there I will be also. That's the nature of worshiping in spirit and truth. Is God only present in the Holy of Holies? Well, no, because there is no more Holy of Holies. Because Christ himself has torn the veil in the temple, the separation between God and humanity. And this is why, coming out of John 4:24, when we take a look at all of these great miracles of the Old Testament. So take, for example, the chief elders of the people of Israel, Moses, Aaron, Nadab, and Abihu. They beheld God and they eat and drink. And we think, well, wouldn't that be really nice if we could have, a similar mountaintop experience? The reality is, it's the other way around. They would say, wouldn't that be nice that the fullness of God and his glory and his presence is with us, and we partake in it in the Lord's Supper. The Lord's Supper is an even greater expression of the glory of God than what Moses, Nadab, Aaron, and Abihu, the 70 elders of Israel, experienced in the book of Exodus. Because even then, the glory of God was veiled. Even when Moses saw God in his glory in Exodus 33, he could only do so, 1, by being hidden in the cleft of the rock, and 2, only when God had passed by, and Moses was able to see, in a sense, the back of God's glory. But now we see the fullness of the glory of God every time we receive Christ in his true body and blood, in with none of the bread and wine. We see the fullness of the glory of God every time we remember our baptism. When the old Adam is drowned, the new person arises in Christ. That's what worshiping in spirit and truth looks like. That's what makes the sacramental life be such an important piece of the theological puzzle for the generations after Christ, starting with the apostles and going beyond. Because it's never been just about a symbolic presence. Even in the book of the Exodus, we see the real presence of God pillar of cloud by day, pillar of fire by night. We see the glory of the Lord overshadow Mount Sinai, and the whole earth shakes with His word. And so why would it be any different in terms of God and His real presence amongst His people where He promises to be found? It just doesn't make sense when you look at the entire biblical narrative to somehow then remove God from being directly in our midst. Even if He says He is, this is my body, this is my blood. Questions or comments on that? Yeah?
Chronologically, when did Jesus speak in the temple at Nazareth, in the synagogue?
I think we see that, well, I think He does it in a couple of different places.
So he does it in Mark, he does it in Luke, but I was just wondering, I don't know if it's in John or
I don't know if that one is in John.
I was trying to figure out, because he said this is the first time he made an I am claim. That was, he made an I am claim when he spoke. But like you say, it was an implied claim.
This is the first time in John we see ego eimi, which is the scope of the theme for John in particular.
Yeah.
So,
But he did make a claim when he was in the synagogue.
yes.
He claimed to be the Messiah.
But yeah, this is the first time in John.
Okay, all right. I'm just trying to, well, the synopsis, I'm trying to figure out the order a little bit.
Yeah.
They're the ones that follow the timeline more than John does.
Anything else on this section? Verse 22, I do want to address that really quickly. When we talk about the uniqueness of salvation, one thing that is interesting, and Jesus is, I don't want to say having fun here. It's not exactly what I'm trying to say, but He does make a bit of a word play here. So when He says salvation is from the Jews, there's a definite article there. But one of the key themes that we see both in the prophets, but also in the Gospels, is the idea that Jesus is Israel reduced to one. And so an example of that are the servant songs in the book of Isaiah. A reminder, there are 5 servant songs. One that we're going to hear a little bit from this morning, we also heard on Good Friday, which is the suffering servant. He was wounded for our transgressions, He was crushed for our iniquities. Upon Him there was a chastisement that brought us peace, and by His stripes we are healed. That is one of the servant songs that we see in the book of Isaiah. But there are other servant songs in Isaiah that refer to failed servants, most of which refer to either the kings of Israel or the people themselves, who are servants but have fallen short in their task, who have turned away from the promises of God and turned to their own desires, their own works, and their own understanding. And as such, they fall short. And in a sense remove themselves from being a people of true Israel, which again are those who worship in spirit and truth, as Jesus is saying. And so in these servant songs, there is only one servant. Not any of the high priests, not any of the kings. There is only one servant who is perfect in carrying out that work, and that is the Messiah. So when Jesus in verse 22 here talks about salvation is from the Jews, He is referring to really Himself at the end of the day, as Israel reduced to one, as the servant who did what all the generations of Israel could not do before Him, which is perfectly follow and worship God, and carry out His will and His ways. They were unable to do that. Not even the greatest of the prophets could do that perfectly. But Jesus does. And so He is here saying that He alone is the means by which one can find salvation, because Jesus alone is Israel. He is the Messiah. And it is in His work that we find salvation and life. Why? Because He is I Am. The I Am who was sent, who sent Moses to the people of Egypt, who sent him before Pharaoh, the I Am, who crossed them through the waters of the Red Sea and up the Jordan, the I Am, who went before them against the Philistines and other enemies, the I Am, who was in their midst in the tabernacle and in the temple, is now here in the flesh. So the Word became flesh. The I Am became flesh. Yes?
But in the in the human terms, like the conversations carrying on with the Samaritan woman, he's telling her that she's actually correct. The Messianic line is from the Jews, it has nothing to do with the Samaritans or anything like that. It has to come through the order that God planned it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
the
he's
Messiah
quite-
was always going to come from Israel, but again, Israel here has been reduced to one. Because Christ alone can say and will say, not my will, but your will be done. And actually mean it, and perfectly carry that out. Because what does Jesus do? Does he abolish the law? No, he keeps it perfectly. He fulfills the law. Verse 27, just then his disciples came back, and they marveled that he was talking with a woman. But no one said, what do you seek, or why are you talking with her? So the woman left her water jar and went away into town and told the people, come, see a man who told me all that I ever did. Can this be the Christ? And they went out of town and were coming to him. So again, she's on the outside looking in for a variety of reasons. We want to just go back historically. First reason, she's in a spot with the connection to Jacob, but also to Joseph, who again is not part of the 12 tribes, who in his life was Egyptian, married an Egyptian woman, was died, embalmed, buried in a coffin. His bones were brought up, though, to that piece of land, back up to Israel, per his wishes. She is also a Samaritan. They broke off from Israel. They refused to come down and worship and made high places up in their own land, and in a sense abandoned the work of God, at least from the perspective of the people of Israel in that time. And on top of that, she does not have a reputable life in history.
Yeah, it's amazing to even listen to her. I mean, but they were probably so shocked that she came to speak to them, that blew their socks off right there. The disciples were all upset. They said they didn't ask him because they were afraid to ask him.
Yeah.
Because they couldn't figure it out.
But if they knew their Old Testament history, they wouldn't find this wholly surprising. What was Rahab's occupation as she assisted the men of Israel as they were scouting out the enemies? She was a prostitute. And yet God used her, brought her into the people of Israel. And I want to say, is she mentioned in the genealogies of Christ?
Yes, she is.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Which, again, is another layer of why the disciples actually shouldn't be surprised that Jesus is speaking restoring and life-giving words to somebody who is outside of Israel, both in terms of who they are descended from, but also in terms of how prior to that point they had led their life.
Go ahead.
Who does Jesus choose to announce his resurrection? The women? That went against everything too.
Well, and not just, well, and that's actually a key point in terms of an apologetic for the resurrection. Just by virtue of the first century, especially in Israelite law, but I want to even say Roman law, there was, in a sense, no weight given to a testimony of a woman in legal proceedings in the first century. And so if you were to concoct a story of something important like the resurrection of Christ, if you wanted to be believed by the standard of proof of the day, you would have reported it was John and Peter first and only who saw Christ, and then everybody else heard. But the fact that the Gospels record the women who record that is actually a better indication that it was true by the first century standards, because they would have, in their right mind, if they were trying to lie effectively, would have not used them as the first and primary witness to the resurrected Lord.
Which is funny too, I think it's, I can't remember if it's like the Gospel of Peter or something like that, which is one of the like fictional ones that came later, but like, you have Peter announcing to everybody and there's like a cross following him in the sky, like, super miraculous and stuff, but yeah.
Yeah.
But think of what it also is showing is that no matter who you are or what you've done, Christ is there for you no matter what.
Yep, and that gets,
And this shows so much here.
and that gets back to one of the original things we talked about earlier. For God so loved the world. Is there an asterisk? Is there a footnote? Is there any sort of qualifier? No, it's just, for God so loved the world that he gave his only Son, that whoever believes in him should not perish but have eternal life. God did not send his Son into the world to condemn the world, that the world might be saved through him. Even a Samaritan woman is saved
Even
through the work of
us.
Christ. Yes. While what? We. And here, there's another question. When Paul says, while we were still sinners, is there an asterisk? No. Is there any qualifier? No. Is there any we except for ... No, it's just, while we, all of us, were still sinners, Christ died for us. As we'll hear in my sermon today, all we, every one of us, are like sheep. Each have gone to their own way, but the Lord has laid on him the iniquity of us all. And so yes, the point of the disciples being shocked is well taken. I like that word, they marveled that he was talking with a woman. It's like the same, just let me put it in this perspective. It's like when I see Atlas actually put away his toys. I marvel that this is something that, like, already can't even process. That's the level of marveling that we have here at 27 at the disciples. So if that, analogy helped out, you could think of it that way. But what does she do? Does she keep it to herself, or does she go out and tell others? And again, more than likely she's here at noon. And that's for the reason of being a bit of a social pariah. She's probably not used to talking to a lot of other people. But now, because of the work of Jesus, she goes and tells everybody, come see a man who told me all that this. Can this be the Christ? And I want to say, and I'll have to look this up, so you take this with a very large grain of salt, but sometimes when you have these conditional clauses, there's an expected answer, whether it be negative or affirmative. And I want to say, but again, I'm not sure, that this is a conditional question that expects a positive result. That is to say, can this be the Christ? And the implied answer is yes, this is the Christ. And then people are coming out and seeing Jesus. Continuing on, actually, let's see, this is a good place to stop. I didn't realize we were already at 10:10. So I'll just leave it. Any final questions or comments through verse 30 in John chapter 4 here?
Well, I think Jesus, what he's doing here is he's contradicting every prejudice, every preconception, every cultural rule, because that's what his salvation is doing.
Yeah.
Man doesn't get to decide how he's saved.
Exactly. Which is a good thing for us. And is a tremendous comfort. And this is where, for those who receive Jesus in faith through the Gospels, it is always for the comfort of their souls, even if when Jesus confronts them with the law. I mean, he doesn't minimize or hide, her history. He knows it, lays it out to her, but then offers a means by which reconciliation and a change in life can be found, namely the living water himself that he provides, the ability to worship in spirit and truth, and affirming to her that he is the I am. Because part of, as we talked about before, what makes the Samaritans so despised by the people of Israel is that they should know better. I mean, she knows exactly what Jesus is doing when he says, ego e me. But she receives it in faith, as opposed to the Pharisees, who generally, when they hear that, they pick up stones to kill Jesus, as we'll see in John chapter 8, because they know he's saying that he is God in the flesh, and that's why they want to have the sentence of blasphemy carried out, which according to Levitical law is stoning. But we'll talk more about that later. But here, 26, we see the first of these I am statements. We see the building of the case that Jesus is who John said he was in his prologue. The Word who became flesh and tabernacles among us. God with us, carrying out his name of Emmanuel. Any final questions or comments or observations on anything before we close with the Lord's Prayer? All right, let us pray. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory,